Hi everybody, and welcome back to my herbal kitchen. In today's video, we are going to be learning how to make fire cider. So it's a blustery, cold, and autumn-like day outside, and it would have been these days that our ancestors would have gathered in the kitchen around the hearth and they would have made their fire cider. Fire cider is a traditional folk remedy. There really isn't an exact recipe that you have to follow, which is what makes this so very beautiful. It became popular when Rosemary Gladstar, back in the 80s, published the first actual print recipe of fire cider. Before that, it was just known as a traditional folk remedy. The goal of the remedy is to gather ingredients that are immune stimulating and antiviral. They would be antibacterial, decongestant, anti-inflammatory, all of these wonderful things that help to support the immune system and also support the digestive system. That's what fire cider is really known for, is helping to give an immune boost as well as supporting, beneficial gut bacteria and digestive functioning. Folks would have used what they had available. And so the recipes will vary based on what you have. I'm following the recipe that you can actually find in the book that I just wrote. I've got it on my website as well, and it's a fairly common one that is pretty easy to find. But this year, I'm actually going to follow in my ancestors' footsteps and kind of tweak it a bit based on what we had access to and what we could find. So again, we're choosing ingredients that think warming, think decongesting, think boosting the immune system. And so I'll show you today what we're going to be working with. One of the, I guess there's probably three ingredients, 3 or 4 that tend to be pretty staple and found in all fire cider recipes. And that would be onion, garlic, horseradish, and ginger. Those tend to be the base. And from there you can tweak and work with what you have. So our onion harvest was really good this year. So I'm actually going to be working with quite a bit of onion. I'm going to be doing 2 batches, but I'm going to give you the measurements for a single batch. So basically you want a medium-sized onion. I'm going to be dividing all of this chopped onion in between 2 batches. And if you have a yellow onion, use that. If you have a red onion, you can use that too. You can use a combination. The allium family is known for its immune boosting effects as well as its decongestant effects. If you've ever chopped an onion before, you know right away your nose and your eyes start to water. You're experiencing those potent decongestant properties right there. Onions, just like garlic, are also known to be broad-spectrum antimicrobials, so they're perfect for this recipe. And I want you to think of this as a herbal recipe, but also a food, because it really is based, as you can see, in a lot of ingredients that we would traditionally call food. And I'm basically dividing it in half, but you kind of want 1 medium-sized onion. The next ingredient I'm going to be working with is horseradish. And if you've ever grated horseradish or eaten it, you know it's got a pungent kick. So it's also really high in anti-inflammatory properties. And you want about 1/2 cup of grated horseradish root. It's pretty easy to find at grocery stores this time of year. We harvested this right off of our property. And then put the rest in this one. All right. The next ingredient that I'm going to be working with is grated ginger root. Now I had to use a combination of dried ginger root and grated because my grocery store didn't have organic ginger root. So this is what I mean by working with what you have, right? What do you have access with? What crops worked really well for you? So again, another broad spectrum antimicrobial. This is also a fantastic digestive herb, and it adds a really beautiful flavor to it as well. So you want about 1/2 cup of grated ginger root. And ideally, we're working with ingredients that are organic if you have access to it and if it's within your budget. There is no fire cider recipe that would be complete without garlic. Garlic, I have talked about before. If you haven't seen my fermented honey garlic video, I will post a link for that here. You definitely want to check it out. It supports the heart, it supports the digestive system, and it supports the immune system. This is probably our most potent broad spectrum antimicrobial that we're going to be adding. It's about 8 to 10 cloves. I like to use a garlic press. I find that's easier. If you like to chop your garlic, you can do that too. But you want about 2 tablespoons of either pressed or chopped garlic, which is about 8 to 10 cloves, depending on the size. You can already imagine what this is going to taste like. It's got quite a kick. So this year, my thyme did really, really well. And I love working with thyme. This is the same thyme that you would cook with and create delicious meals with. And thyme is a decongestant as well. It's a broad spectrum antimicrobial. So it's going to help support our immune system and give our body exactly what we need. And you can just put the stems in whole. Works great. Now, I don't have any rosemary left. I've used it all for tincture, so I'm going to be using dried rosemary. If you have access to fresh rosemary right now, you want about 3 sprigs of fresh rosemary. If you don't, you can use 2 tablespoons dried. And you don't have to use thyme and rosemary. Like I said, work with what you have. I'll make sure I'll post a link to both my recipe book that's available on Amazon, as well as a link to my blog post about fire cider. And so that way you'll have all the written ratios down to refer to. The next ingredient, which is really common in most fire cider recipes, is turmeric. And again, I did not have access to fresh grated or fresh turmeric root that I could grate. It's my preference. When I can't find it, you can totally use powdered, which is what I'll be doing today. If you have fresh turmeric root, you're going to be using about 1/4 cup of grated turmeric. If you don't have access to fresh, you can use a tablespoon of powdered. See, living in the country like we do, you kind of have to work with what you have access to. Another thing I did not have access to was organic lemons. I basically can never find them where I live, so I use bottled lemon juice. You want the juice of 1 lemon, which is about 2 tablespoons. My preference is always to use organic when it comes to citrus. They do tend to be highly sprayed, but I don't have access to it. So like I said, we work with what we have. So I'm gonna add about 2 tablespoons. And again, a lot of this is ish. Work with your flavor profile, what you like. If you really hate rosemary, maybe you're allergic to it. Don't add that, right? Now, normally the recipe also calls for about 1 tablespoon of lemon zest, but because I couldn't find organic lemons, I'm actually gonna work with some organic dried orange peel that I have. I'm just gonna toss in a small handful. I think it's gonna make it taste really nice. Look at that. Now, a lot of folks wonder, like, how do you take your fire cider? Because it is pungent, it is spicy. And, you know, you can water it down and take it as a shot. You can use it as a part of marinades in your cooking. You can use it as a part of a spicy salad dressing. Because this is going to be infused in vinegar, it's basically anything that you would use vinegar for. So you probably saw me looking out the window. I just had a customer come by to pick up one of their orders. So I only have 1 ingredient left to add to my fire cider. And again, these are optional. Like I said, work with what you have. You know, maybe your oregano did really, really well this year and you would like to add that in instead of thyme. That's perfectly fine. So one of the optional ingredients is adding in even more pungency. So I'm gonna be adding in just 1/4 teaspoon of dried cayenne. Other options would be, like, maybe you had a really great jalapeno harvest this year and you'd like to add in a jalapeno pepper. You can add in a fresh cayenne itself too if you'd like. If you don't have a high tolerance for pungency or heat, then you can skip it altogether. But cayenne is an amazing herb that will support the immune system. It's obviously a decongestant. Anything with some pungency is a decongestant. But it's also a great heart herb and helps with so many other things. So I really do like to add it. And then the last step, which is really, really easy, is adding in our apple cider vinegar. Now I encourage you to source some good quality apple cider vinegar. You want something that is raw, that is not pasteurized and still has the mother in it. You know, like your Heinz apple cider vinegar for canning is not really what we're going for here. If you really want a well-rounded, good quality recipe that's going to support your immune system and your digestion, you want good quality apple cider vinegar. And I love using this company because they're local. Another great one that's really easy to find would be Bragg's. And so what you want to do is pour it in to basically fill up your jar. So you can see why this is in many ways more of a food folk remedy than it is a herbal. It's kind of this beautiful combination of the two. And because it's an infused apple cider vinegar, you can really use this. I'm just making sure it goes all the way down. You can really use this any way you would use apple cider vinegar. So like I said, you can use this for salad dressings, marinades. I really just take a shot of it in the morning. And so what I'm doing now is just kind of moving things around to make sure that the apple cider vinegar covers everything. Look at the beautiful color. It's so nice. So yeah, make sure you get in there with a knife or something like that, just to ensure that your apple cider vinegar covers everything. There we are. And then your next step is to cover it with your lid and label it. Because this is a vinegar-based recipe, if you are using mason jars and have metal lids, it is absolutely imperative that you use a piece of parchment paper as a barrier between the vinegar and the metal of your lid, because the vinegar in this will absolutely eat right through the metal. There we go. Now you want this to infuse ideally for about 6 weeks if you can, 4 to 6 weeks. Keep it in your cupboard. Shake it whenever you think of it. When you're ready to strain out your veggies, I really like using a potato ricer. If you haven't seen them before, they look kind of like big giant garlic presses. They're fantastic for squeezing out all the last of the goodies and stuff. You can use fine mesh sieves, cheesecloth, whatever you have. You just want to strain all of the herbs out. Some folks like to then add the herbs to things like stir fries, homemade spring rolls, that kind of thing. We tend to just feed it to the chickens. But you can reuse those vegetables if you choose to. And then what you'll be taking is the infused apple cider vinegar. After I strain out all of the herbs and veggies, I like to add about 1/4 of a cup of honey to it and shake it really, really well. The sweetness kind of cuts some of the heat that you do find in fire cider, and this is very much to taste. If you are diabetic and you don't want to add any honey, you don't have to. If you're trying to get your kids to take this, maybe you need to add 1/2 cup of honey. It's really up to you. There's no right or wrong way to do this. So this is fire cider. I hope you have enjoyed this video. I appreciate all of the sharing and the likes. Like I said, I will post in the comments below, I'll post a link to my blog as well as a link to my new book. If you want to check those out, you can find the fire cider recipe, like I said, on my website and among over 70 other recipes that are in my book. So thank you so very much for watching. And until next time, this is Corinne from Spiraea Herbs, wishing you health and wellness.